mystery and the punishment of some crime.
No. It is just one of those whimsical little incidents that will occur when you have 4 million people all jostling each other within the space of a few square miles.
So what do you gather from that? Battered old felt.
You know my methods. What do you yourself gather as to the individuality of the man who has worn this particular article? It was accompanied by a goose, Watson. For Mrs. Henry Baker was printed upon a small card attached to the bird's left leg.
Well, apart from the initials inside, HB, presumably Henry Baker, I can see nothing.
On the contrary, Watson, you can see everything. But you fail to reason from what you see. You are too timid in drawing your inferences.
Then, pray, tell me what it is that you can infer from that hat.
That the man is highly intellectual is, of course, obvious. And also that he was fairly well-to-do within the past 3 years, although now he has fallen upon evil days. He had foresight, but less now than formerly, pointing to a moral retrogression, which, when taken with a decline in his fortunes, seems to indicate an evil influence. Probably drink. This may account also for the fact that his wife has ceased to love him.
My dear Holmes.
He has, however, retained some degree of self-respect. Now, he leads a sedentary life. He's out of training entirely. He's middle-aged, has grizzled hair, which he has had cut within the last few days, and which he anoints with lime cream. It is also highly improbable that he has gas laid on in his house.
Yeah, well, now you are certainly joking.
Not in the least.
Well, I have no doubt that I'm very stupid. For example, how do you deduce that the man is intellectual?
It is a question of cubic capacity. A man with so large a head must have something in it.
Well, the decline in his fortunes, then?
These flat brims with the curled edges came in 3 years ago. It is a hat of the very best quality, Watson. Look at the band of ribbed silk and the excellent lining. If this man could afford so expensive a hat 3 years ago and has had no hat since, then he has assuredly gone down in the world.
What about the foresight and the moral retrogression?
Here is the foresight. These securas are never sold upon hats. If this man ordered one, it is a sign of a certain amount of foresight, since he went out of his way to take precaution against the wind. But as you see that he has broken the elastic and has not troubled to replace it, a weakening nature. The further points that he is middle-aged, that his hair is grizzled, that it has been cut recently, and that he anoints it with lime cream can all be gathered by an inspection of the lower part of the lining, Watson, and witness the moisture. Obviously a free perspirer, therefore not in the best of training.
But his wife, you said she had ceased to love him.
This hat has not been brushed for weeks. When I see a man with a week's accumulation of dust upon his hat, and his wife has allowed him to go out in such a state, I fear that he has been unfortunate enough to lose his wife's affections.
But he might be a bachelor.
Nay, but he brought a goose as a peace offering to his wife. Remember the card attached to the bird's leg?
Yes. Well, you have an answer to everything. Just a minute. How do you deduce that there is no gas laid on in his house?
1 tallow candle stain, or even 2 might come by chance, but when I see Watson, no less than 5. He never got candle stains from a gas jet, Watson. Are you satisfied?
Well, it's all very ingenious.
Mr. Holmes, the goose. The goose, Mr. Holmes.
Well, what of it, man? Has it come back to life and flapped off through the kitchen window?
No, sir. But see what the wife found in its crop.
Oh, Jeff Peterson. This is a treasure trove indeed. You know what you've got.
A diamond. Precious stone, but it cuts glass like it was putty.
It is more than a precious stone. It is the precious stone.
The Hotel Cosmopolitan robbery. The blue carbuncle.
The blue carbuncle indeed. It is absolutely unique. Its value can only be conjectured. And your reward, Peterson, of £1,000 is not within a 20th of its market price.
£1,000? Oh, Lord have mercy.
You must admit, Watson, that my deductions in regard to this hat have suddenly assumed a more important aspect.
Yes, point taken, Holmes. Now, the question for us now to solve is to trace the sequence of events from a rifle jewel case at the one end to the crop of a goose at the other. There is the stone. The stone came from the goose. The goose came from Mr. Henry Baker, the gentleman with the shabby hat and all the other characteristics. So now we must set ourselves very seriously to finding this gentleman and to ascertaining what part he had to play in this little mystery.
Found. At the corner of Goodge Street, a goose and a black felt hat. Mr. Henry Baker can have same by applying at 6:30 this evening at 221B Baker Street. Clear and concise.
Yes, very, but will he see it?
Well, I'm sure he will keep an eye on the evening papers. For the poor man, the loss was a heavy one. Oh, Peterson. Just nip down to the advertising agency and have this put in all the evening papers.
Which one, sir?
The Globe, Star, Pall Mall, St. James Gazette, Echo, Evening News, Standard, and all the others that may occur to you.
Right away, sir. And the stone?
I shall keep the stone. Thank you, Peterson.
Yes, sir.
Oh, and Peterson. Would you pick up a goose on your way back? Give him the money, will you, Watson? We must have something to give Mr. Henry Baker to take the place of the one that your family will very soon be devouring.
Oh, thank you, sir. £1,000?
£1,000.
£1,000. £1,000.
What will you do with the stone?
I shall keep it in my museum.
Well, Horner, her ladyship is not at all pleased with me. You might be under lock and key, but she'd rather her blue carbuncle was.
Never took it, Inspector. What is it?
Yes. Well, tell me what you did with it, and I'll put in a good word at your trial. But if you don't...
I've been on the straight for years, ever since I married Jenny.
If you don't, and when the judge hears about your previous conviction, you might never see your pretty wife again. I've got you, Horner, but I need that jewel.
It's a bonny thing. Just see how it glints and sparkles.
Of course, it is a nucleus and focus of crime. Every good stone is. They are the devil's pet baits. In the larger and older jewels, every facet may stand for a bloody deed.
It was found in the banks of the Amoy River in southern China and is remarkable in having every characteristic of the carbuncle, save that it is blue instead of ruby red. This stone is not yet 20 years old.
In spite of its youth, it already has a sinister history. There have been 2 murders, a vitriol-throwing suicide, and several robberies brought about for the sake of this 40-grain weight of crystallized charcoal.
Who would think that so pretty a toy could be a purveyor to the gallows and the prison?
Come in. Mr. Henry Baker, I believe. Please, draw near the fire. It is a cold night, and I observe that your circulation is more adapted for summer than for winter. Do sit down. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
Mr. Baker. Is that your hat?
Oh, yes. Oh, it is undoubtedly my hat. Thank you, sir. I would have advertised its loss, but shillings have not been so plentiful with me as they once were. I had no doubt that the gang of roughs who assaulted me had carried off both my hat and the bird. I did not care to spend more money in a hopeless attempt at recovering them.
Yes, well, of course, that is very understandable. Oh, by the way, about your bird. We were compelled to eat it.
To eat it?
It would have been a little use to anyone had we not done so. But we have another goose upon the sideboard there, which I presume will answer your purpose equally well. It is about the same weight and perfectly fresh, as you can see.
Oh, yes, most certainly.
Of course, we have kept the feathers, legs, crop, and so on of your own bird, if you so wish.
They might be useful to me as relics of my adventure, but beyond that, I can hardly see what use the disjecta membra of my old acquaintance could possibly be to me. Oh, no, sir, with your permission, I shall confine my attentions to the excellent bird which I perceive upon your sideboard.
I would be interested to know where the other bird came from. You see, I am somewhat of a fowl fancier, and I have seldom seen a better-grown bird. It would be of great interest to me to know precisely how it came into your possession.
It was the club, sir, the Goose Club.
So, the Goose Club? What were the exact circumstances?
I am not a rich man, as you may see, sir, but I make a humble living, and a respectable one, if I may say so, in the British Museum.
Studying?
Studying, you might say, and helping others with their studies. I have a certain knowledge of books. That day, sir, I had finished work early and left the museum in the afternoon. I had a little business to attend to before calling in at the Alpha public house. Several of us who work in the museum frequent that establishment, and this year our good host, Mr. Windigate, had instigated a goose club, by which, on consideration of some few pence each week, we were to receive a bird at Christmas.
There we are, Mr. Baker. A very fine bird, as promised.
A magnificent specimen indeed, landlord, eh?
Put you back in a wife's good books, eh?
Yes, well, she is still somewhat irked with me, I'm afraid. However, things will doubtless improve when I am once more in gainful employment.
Of an academic nature, of course.
Well, I have expectations. Now, I owe you one last payment of 8 pennies, eh?
Struck it rich, have we, Mr. Baker?
I chanced upon an acquaintance of a sympathetic disposition. That is to say, I sold some of my books.
Ah. Not your books, Mr. Baker.
Needs must, Mr. Windigate, and at this season of the year more than ever, we must not deprive those we love. Or even those to whom we are married. And so, if you will set aside this impressive peace offering, I shall fortify myself for the fray with a large glass of whiskey and a pint of your most excellent beer.
Same to you, Mr. Baker. Here we are with you.
Monsieur, sir.
Come on. Inside. Come in.
Well, sir, on my way home, I was attacked by the gang of roughs who I believed had stolen the goose. My hat came off in the scuffle, but I remember little of it, save that a uniformed officer appeared on the scene, and we all made off.